New Zealand's elite child abuse rings exposed. Mediahorse.co.nz. Minister of State Organised Child Abuse Antali has today announced there will be no investigation into mass child abuse by the Crown. The Crown presumably has the God-given right to abuse as many Kiwi children as it likes, and it's none of taxpayers' business. Fearless blogger Uda Finam that specializes in exposing NZ's pedophile corporate elite and the justice system that appears to systematically protect them has recently posted allegations that the NZ judiciary have also been caught red-handed covering up pedophilia in NZ. Nothing new to us at Media Horse. It has long been alleged that even New Zealand's Chief Justice Sian Elias is married to a serial child sex offender Hugh Fletcher. So perhaps it is no surprise that pedophiles are protected by the NZ justice system. The Justin Davis files floating around the web seems to suggest that the NZ judiciary is actively involved in the covering up and protection of powerful pedophiles and pedophile rings in New Zealand, including some MPs, and many top businessmen, doctors, and dentists in NZ. Whistleblower Justin Davis gives us a first-hand look into the world of these pedophiles who use sophisticated date rape drugs to drug and abuse children in their doctors' rooms, dentistry clinics, churches, and even MP offices. The drugs they use mean the victims usually do not even know they have been abused, and just wake up in a haze feeling drowsy with no memory of the abuse, but they will never be the same, traumatized in the subconscious for life. Every so often we see such cases float to the surface, but they are usually covered up and suppressed as quickly as possible. The fact is they are only the tip of the iceberg. They are likely all connected, and probably using the same drugs and drug networks exposed by Justin Davis, drugs being distributed by top doctors and dentists around NZ. Here is some of the headlines, links are in the description of this video. New Zealander charged with sex assaults on drugged backpackers. Jury finds former St. John ambulance officer guilty on all 8 sex charges. Doctor granted permanent name suppression. Auckland professional caught with 6,000 objectionable images. We have also recently seen the astounding situation of NZ Judge Lowell Goddard seeming to fudge the investigation into the Westminster scandal in the UK, where over 100,000 children are alleged to have been abused by British MPs, lords, judges and high-profile entertainers. The NZ judiciary right in the thick of it. They are very much an international operation, that much is clear. Ironically, it was the blogger Cameron Slater who exposed in 2014 sitting MPs have name suppression for child abuse crimes. Slater is obviously part of same establishment with his blanket protection of John Key and his gang, but was being put under pressure during the dirty politics scandal and published it on his blog one day, presumably as a threat to those who he works with and for. We know quite a few MPs have had to stand down in recent years. Mike Sabin was one of them, but the public are not even allowed to discuss that case on the orders of the NZ judiciary. We are aware that Nick Smith MP recently hired a Nelson lawyer to fight child abuse ring allegations circulating online. Nick Smith was also tied up with the Civic Cratch case, in which young children came forward with stories of sexual abuse. Close to the fire, it seems, is the NZ Housing Minister. And then there was Prime Minister John Key's joke about the escaped pedophile killer Philip Smith, there goes that name again, on the world stage /G20 summit. John Key obviously thinks pedophilia is quite humorous. The very fact they call these people ministers is highly suspect. Stinks of religious overtones, and we all know too well about the reputation of church ministers. It is all the same church in our view. To their credit, it was Radio NZ who reported on the 1,000 children who have gone missing from Child, Youth and Family over the years. The government and Antali raced to counter the fallout by relabeling the Crown's apparent child trafficking operation with a new name. Radio NZ appear to spend most of their time covering this stuff up, but this article was good work on their part. Facebook is awash with stories of child, youth and family now kidnapping children as young as 4 weeks old from their breastfeeding mothers. They do this using their laws and mandatory, and unverifiable, drug tests which they enforce on poor parents who are reliant on their communist welfare/warfare system. So they take a breastfeeding child off its mother at 4 weeks and place it in the hands of strangers, where the statistics say they are at least 10 times more likely to be abused. How can the public be assured these kids are not being kidnapped to order by pedophiles who are connected to these people who pose as government and justice? Perhaps these freaks feed off children. In fact, some argue this is often the case. There are numerous petitions online from families who have had their children kidnapped by the state under dubious circumstances. Can you imagine knowing your kids have been taken by people with numerous documented ties to pedophile rings and child abuse? Horrific. http://secure.ava.az.org/en/petition/government_hold_score into_the_children_by_cifs. It was exiled NZ author Greg Hallett who first claimed, quote, "The judiciary shows itself to be a pedophile and crime creation movement whose primary goal is fatherless families." In his book available on Amazon New Zealand, A Blackmailer's Guide. Greg was denied a fair hearing by the same judiciary in NZ and then had a number of murder attempts on his life before fleeing the country back in 2007. Further below we post some links to recent name suppression cases in which the NZ judiciary protect child sex offenders, many of them caught red-handed, some even with child murder videos but still escaped conviction. A reasonable person would have to at least suspect that this is in fact a major goal of the judiciary in NZ to protect child sex offenders. You will know them by their deeds. Very wise words. Not by the fancy titles and honors they give them. You can watch Greg Hallett's interview with U.S. researcher Jim Fetzer below. Greg maintains his sense of humor even as the mafia chase him around trying to murder him, a true national/Kiwi hero, exposing the child abusers of NZ and their global network and risking his own life to do so. Recent name suppression and related cases in NZ. The nation is literally crawling with pedophiles and the judiciary seem to go out of their way to protect them. The list includes MPs, top businessmen, and many more high-profile New Zealanders. Quite a club they are running. More headlines, links again in the description. Jury finds former St. John ambulance officer guilty on all 8 sex charges. C. Found guilty of contempt. Permanent name suppression for top professional. Name suppression for Auckland professional. Doctor granted permanent name suppression. Auckland professional caught with 6,000 objectionable images. But they only give name suppression to protect the victims, right? Abused sisters lose High Court bid to name attacker. Investigated teacher refused to open laptop, but can still teach. GP accused of indecent assault finally loses his right to practice. Fight to keep name suppressed in couch surfing case. Convicted rapist back tutoring. New Zealander charged with sex assaults on drugged backpackers. Permanent name suppression for prominent New Zealander. Prominent Auckland actor on sex charges retains name suppression. Sex offender Ronald Van der Plaat's release angers Te Atatu community. Name suppression for New Plymouth man who imported pornography. Invercargill underage sex accused not guilty. Acquitted prominent Enzer wins permanent suppression. Man jailed for 13 years for raping daughter. Name suppression threshold too high QC. Sex offender seeks further name suppression. Kiwi entertainer retains name suppression. Suppression for man on rape charge. Community work and name suppression for child porn downloader. NZ actor facing sex charges keeps name suppression. Judge declines to lift suppression of Kiwi actor on sex charges. Comedian says incident was drunken accident. Wellington child pornography offender discharged without conviction. Pharmacist suppression orders lifted. Upskirt filmer gets name suppression. Name suppression for Auckland flasher. Teachers found guilty of misconduct over relationship with 13-year-old girl lose name suppression. Some argue it's the same agenda as political Marxism and it springs from these people's ancient religious beliefs, a scientific and/or spiritual method of destroying communities for power and control, and New Zealand is suffering under it at extreme levels under the John Key foreign banker regime, at least as much as it did under the Marxist Clark regime. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden feeling up children, pictured Mike Gillum, private investigator whom pedophile exposing website Lahuda has exposed many times. Such people are deployed to help with cover-ups, Lahuda claims. Kiwis need to ask themselves, are we governed by a gang of child sex offenders that feed off our children? Number they live. They have recruited the rich and powerful.